Hi, everyone. I'm Denise O'Malley, the founder of You Define Wellness, and welcome to another in this series of This Is My Story. If you're following along, you know that what I'm doing is I'm introducing you to health and wellness professionals who are part of the You Define Wellness Network who have had to find their own way, just as many of you probably are. And when I had to find my own way, what I didn't realize is there are so many experts out there that are available to help you, and it's my mission to introduce them to you. So today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Linda Carney. And Linda, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Denise.
So this is your story. Where would you like to start?
Well, I would kind of introduce this story by letting you all know that one of the last times that you and I were together, I told kind of the beginning of my story, which was called Falling Forward, Turning Your Pain into Purpose. And that was kind of a summary of the beginning of my journey and how I found my own way to get my body well.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a summary of the physical journey.
Can I
And
stop you and say, you said you needed to get your body well. Are you willing to share what was not well?
yes, I came down. Well, it's fall of 1999. I came down with a cold, just like a run-of-the-mill virus. Um, and long story short, it turned into a 12-year journey of chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic nausea, chronic dizziness, fibromyalgia, pain issues, 12 years worth. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 12 years of being in pain. Oh my word.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, continue.
Yeah. So this last presentation was kind of a summary of how physically I defined my own wellness, how I found my way out of that. But that wasn't the end of the story. My journey continued, and I think it will always continue. Um, as I went through that journey of finding my way to physical illness, and that was maybe the simpler in terms of figuring out what does my body need to get well. That's, we all can we know what things we need in terms of rest and sunshine and fresh air and good nutrition and things like that. But I began to think about, was there more to it? I thought back to that year, 1999, and I thought about what kinds of things triggered that illness, because it came out of the blue. I mean, most of us, we catch a cold and we get better. So I thought about what triggered that illness, and I started thinking about whether there's a mind-body connection involved in that whole process. So I went back to 1999 in my memories, and I was thinking about what kinds of things happened prior to that. And I recalled that one year, almost to the day of when I got sick, I had undergone a major surgery. So no doubt my immune system was probably compromised from that. And I also remembered and realized that there was a lot of tremendous family stresses going on in my life. So there was a combination of trying to recover from the surgery and also dealing with some major stresses, which, caused tension and anxiety. So my system was compromised, no doubt. And what I now realize is that all of that triggered a cortisol response, which is called your fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. And that can affect everything. It can affect your sleep, it can affect your moods, it can affect your digestive system, your gut, which is, by the way, where most of your immune system resides, in your gut. Anyway, your immune system can be weakened by physical stresses and emotional stresses. So as I examined that whole situation, I came to the conclusion that yes, there had to have been a mind-body connection also involved in that. So that led me to another conclusion in terms of thinking, how am I going to stay well moving forward? If there's a mind-body connection, um, I'm not ever going to be able to escape stress or pain or, who knows, tragedy, in my life. So I realized that I had to develop some coping strategies for stress and get that under control. Because if I didn't, I knew that it would be a matter of when I would get sick again and not if I would get sick again.
Right.
So what happened next is the rest of my story.
Okay.
Yeah. In the fall, I would say 2012 or so, I felt that my physical recovery was pretty well complete. I felt good. My energy level was good. I was participating in social activities again. My next step was to kind of get back into the workforce and find a part-time job and see, kind of take that next step and see if I could handle it. So I did that. I found a part-time job going back to my former career in food service, and I became a lunch lady, 2 or 3 hours a week. But as I did that, that question was always in the back of my mind, that mind-body connection. What might, what's going to happen that might trigger that illness again? I mean, I'm going to be in with germs every day. What if I catch another cold that might turn into, another long journey of chronic illness? It's always in the back of my mind. I thought back to my childhood even, and I was thinking, okay, this mind-body connection. I remember when I was a kid, the first day of school, every year, I would get so nervous and so stressed out that I'd actually throw up,
Yeah.
vomit the first day of school. And then I think a few years, well, when I was a young adult, every new job that came along, first day of that new job, I didn't go so far as to like vomit, but I was so stressed that I'd get nauseated and dizzy. So there you have it, the mind-body connection,
Yeah.
stress, anxiety, having your body overreacting to that fight or flight response, that cortisol release. So I knew I have to figure out how to deal with this.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I didn't want to, I don't want to go back to where I was in 1999. I had to learn.
And you didn't want to want to either.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Some people would immediately turn to, that's anxiety. Let's go to the doctor. We'll get a pill so that when I get into these stressful situations, I'm calm and relaxed. But man, that's messing with your body.
It is messing with your body. And you know what? I've been there and I did that. And, that was part of, the original journey. Towards the end, it was a struggle. I was at one point on 10 prescription medications. So that was part of my journey, trying to wean myself off one at a time, little by little by little. And boy, I don't want to repeat that again.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that began another journey, and for me, it began with a real honest self-examination, taking a look at my life. And I just want to share a screen with you. Most of us, we've heard of the Serenity Prayer, and I have kind of a pretty picture of one here. And I'll just read it to you. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's kind of how I had to go about this whole process, this self-examination. I had to figure out, who am I, really? And what makes me tick? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? What makes me happy? What gives me joy? And then what kind of things don't make me happy? What does not give me joy? And then, is there anything I can really do to change this? Some things there are, some things you can't. If I can't change it, how am I going to come to terms with that? Because I have to.
And let me jump in and interject here to say, Somebody just said, it's so simple, but it's not easy. It's not that easy sometimes to sit back and say, what do I like? What do I dislike when you're in a state of flux? So
Mhm.
kudos to you and taking that time and definitely want to, how did you make that first step? I mean, how do you sit down and decide, do I like this? Do I not like this when you're in that mess?
Mhm. Yeah, well, for me, part of that self-examination, I didn't really know how to go about that either, but um, part of how it happened for me was that I took a look back at memories that were joyful,
Mhm.
memories that were painful, and looking at the why of all those things. You
Yeah.
know, why was that such a happy memory, or why is this such a painful memory?
Yeah.
And then um, what would I need in my life um, to change something in order that so that if that happened again, I could turn it around and bring a different outcome,
Yeah.
so to speak.
All right.
Um, yeah, and part of this defining our own wellness, at that time, I really didn't have anyone to show me the way. But now, since I've been in my training with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, it's funny because I found a way to help other people do that. And to begin that journey, there's a tool called the Circle of Life. And I would like to share that screen with you too, because it's for anyone who's watching here, it's a great place to start with the self-examination. And here it is. It's a very simple tool, just a sheet of paper with a circle with 12 different areas of our life on there. And this encompasses the different areas of our life that we need to take a look at and examine. Your joy, what brings you joy, what does not bring you joy, your spirituality, your level of creativity, your finances, your career, education, health, physical activity, your nutrition, home cooking, your home environment is a big one,
Mhm.
relationships, social life. So anyway, when I start with a client, we talk about all these areas and just kind of take a look at how content or
Mhm.
not content. Um, so that's a good place to start. Discovering, who are you? Who am I really? And once you figure that out, now that you know who you are and what kind of makes you tick, how can you become okay with that? You
Mhm.
have you have to come to a place of self-acceptance, and that's part of that serenity
Yeah.
prayer. Being okay with accepting the things that you can't change, and
Right.
realizing what you can or what you can't, and accepting those things that you can't. Um, Definition of self-acceptance is finding value in all parts of who you are. And what does that mean? It means for me to own and accept my imperfections, understand that my life is a journey and it's not over yet. Um, I've not arrived at my final destination. Hopefully, I won't for a little while yet. um,
Right.
this is who I am today. I may have been different yesterday. I may be different tomorrow or next year, but I've made mistakes. Own own my responsibility in those mistakes. Um, when you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
Um, you need to stop comparing yourself. I needed to stop comparing myself to other people because my journey and my destiny is mine.
Yeah.
It's not yours. It's not that person's, and theirs isn't mine. Um,
And theirs isn't perfect.
Theirs isn't. Not you're right. None of
Yeah.
our journeys is perfect, and
Right.
that's just a fact of life. And part of that also is I had to stop seeking approval from others to find my value
Mm.
and my worth. My value, my worth comes from within. It has to.
Yeah.
So this is all part of self-acceptance. And then the next step after self-acceptance would be self-love. That's the next step or leap, it might be, to learn to love yourself. And self-love can bring the capacity for you to be comfortable with just being with yourself.
Yeah.
which is important because that brings self-confidence in knowing that no matter what comes or goes, and no matter who comes or goes into your life, you're going to be okay because you always have yourself.
Mhm.
And um, just this morning, I saw on Facebook a little thing that kind of made me laugh, but it certainly applies to this. And it said, I'll be, because I love myself enough for both of us.
Okay, so
So,
I'm going to ask you to repeat that because you cut out just a bit, and so we
oh,
didn't hear it all.
yeah, it says, I don't need you to like me because I love me enough for both of us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just so true, and that's just something that is so freeing and so helpful,
Mhm.
that self-love, to develop that. Um, Part of that is developing compassion for yourself. And how do you do that? For me, it was to take an honest look at my memories once again,
Mhm.
the good and the bad, the ugly,
Mhm.
and thinking about in the past, were there things that may have been um, said to me that I wish hadn't been said? Were there things that weren't said to me that I wish had been said?
Yeah.
Um, were there things that I wished had happened differently? I think we all have some of those things. Were there times that I felt betrayed or abandoned or let down by someone I trusted? Or were there times when I felt let down by myself? And then to take that a step further, if you would step outside of yourself and if you saw this happen, those same things happen, or those same things said to your child, or to your niece, or your nephew, or your best friend,
Mhm.
how would you respond to them? Would you say, get over it, you're not very important, it's no big deal? Or would you say to them, would you say to your child, um, this isn't your fault, I love you, and together we're going to get through this? When you look at it that way, it's kind of a no. Um, so then the next step is go ahead and pick something that you might say, pick a phrase or a word that you might say to your child if they came to you and said, somebody made fun of me today, or I was embarrassed today.
Mhm.
That thing that you would say to them, go ahead and look in the mirror and say it to yourself. Um, that's self-compassion, that's self-love, that's taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that's an important step. That's part of self-care. And when you think about self-care, all these self words, when you think about it, I can have a tendency to think, oh, I'm being selfish by thinking about myself so much, or I'm being self-indulgent. But when you really think about it, if you don't take time for caring for yourself, loving for yourself, it goes back to that mind-body connection. And if I don't care for myself, there will be a time again when I may get sick and somebody else is going to have to care for me just like they did before. So it's not selfish when you think about it that way. You want to be self-sufficient. You want to be able to care for yourself so that you don't put that burden on someone else. So all these steps are important. Um, so self-care also requires an amount of self-examination. How have you cared for yourself in the past? Has it worked for you or has it not worked for you? Take another look at that circle of life. What areas do you feel a sense of discomfort, or are there areas?
Mhm.
Um, and then when you discover those areas, like I said previously, what might you need to tweak that or change that um, to bring a different outcome?
Yeah.
So listen to your body, listen to your heart, listen to your gut because it knows. Your body's always communicating with you. Some people will say when your body's communicating to you, they call that a symptom. They
Yeah.
are, and they are, the medical community will call them symptoms, but I call them communication signals. Your body's always communicating to you if it needs something or if it's lacking something. So listen to your body. Are you hungry? Don't deny yourself. Eat.
Mhm.
Um, are you exhausted? Just take the time to rest. This is self-care. whatever rest means for you. You might need a 2-hour nap, or you might need a walk, a nature walk. Whatever's restful for you, whatever brings you peace of mind and rest in your body. Do that. Listen to your body and do give it what it's asking for. Listen to your cravings. Sometimes we have healthy cravings. Sometimes we have unhealthy cravings. If it's a healthy craving, go for it. Don't hesitate. Do it.
Right.
That's a good thing. But an unhealthy craving, don't deny it, and don't immediately shut it off and say, this is bad, I need to get rid of it, run from it. Because an unhealthy craving is still your body trying to communicate to you. I'm going to take a sip of water.
Mm-hmm.
That unhealthy craving is your body's way of saying, oh, I need something. Something doesn't feel right. And your body knows the things that immediately bring you comfort, whether it's a bowl of ice cream or a cigarette or a drink. If you've had a bad day at work, you come home and that's the thing you're thinking of. I need a bowl of ice cream, or I need a glass of wine. But you can think about, is that what I really need? Or is there something more that my body's or my mind is trying to tell me I'm lacking? What triggered that discontent to cause me to want that glass of wine or that bowl of ice cream? So my suggestion when that happens is to hold on to that trigger, that craving for just a minute. Don't run from it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to squash it right away with the glass of wine, but just think about it for a moment. Be mindful with it, and think about what made me feel this way. Even if you can only think of one word, I'm angry, or I'm embarrassed. Just think about that for a moment and write it down, journal it. And every time it happens going forward, try to do that. Just hold on to it for a moment and just journal it. And then, sooner or later, maybe you'll see a pattern, and maybe you can finally identify what the source is and what the trigger is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of my little trick about that. So anyway, that's self-care, that's stress reduction, that's self-love, and there's tons of other ways to do that. But the point is to begin to pay attention to what you truly need, and be a friend to yourself. Nurture yourself like you would your child or your best friend, and meet those needs in a positive way if you can. So anyway, next up, self-confidence. When you begin to do all these things, the self-examination, the self-discovery, the self-care, you're going to start to see improvements in your body, your level of overall wellness, your level of joy. And you'll begin to realize you have an inner strength, because look at you. Look what you're doing. You're taking care of yourself. You have strength that maybe you didn't realize you had. And then when you come to those realizations, what happens? You begin to develop self-confidence, and you begin to believe in yourself. You'll begin to see that there's good in you. You'll begin to be proud of yourself, because look where you've come. Else is doing it for you. You are doing this. You're defining your own wellness. And even on those days when you maybe feel like you're taking one step forward and 2 steps back on the last month or the last 2 months, and all those steps forward, you'll see that overall you're moving forward, and you're developing wellness through that mind-body connection. As comes, and then you can see that you can set goals, you can achieve goals, you can look at your hopes and your dreams as more than hopes and dreams. You can look at them as possibilities. There's other benefits of self-confidence too, in terms of fear. When you develop self-confidence, your fears become not so scary.
Right.
Yeah. And I used to be the queen of anxiety, the queen of fear, the queen of worry. My first question always when I got a new idea was, what if? And I always had to envision the worst case scenario. Sometimes it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I always had to think of what could be the worst thing that could happen, and then I had to come up with a plan just in case.
Yeah.
But I've come to understand now that when I run towards my fears instead of away from them, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And when I actually get to that point of doing that thing I'm afraid of, they're gone.
Yeah.
Fear's gone forever because you've done it, So, and then what takes place of that fear? Confidence. So, what could be better than that? You develop your confidence that you can overcome this thing, you can overcome the next thing. What is there to be afraid of? No fear is insurmountable. And actually, you can begin to look at yourself. So bring them on, bring them on. We can do it. So self-confidence, another thing that develop is boldness. Mm-hmm. I have learned to accept myself, and now I'm ready to reveal myself. I want to let the world see this transformation, and you will want to let the world see yours too. You're confident in yourself now, and you don't care so much about what other people would think of this new you. Remembering that your value comes from within, not from anybody else's opinion. Self-confidence helps you to live out your authentic self.
Love that saying.
Yeah. So ask yourself this question. Are you living your life out as a chameleon? And what I mean by that is, because this is what I did. This is what I did. Yes. No, depending upon who I was with, this circle of people or that friend or that family member, they're all different. And because I needed to be approved or I needed to please all these people and be approved of them, I would adjust my behavior. I would adjust my conversation, the words that I used. You get pretty good at reading people and knowing what they want to hear and what they want to see. So I became a chameleon. I became different depending upon who I was with and what I knew they wanted to hear. So are you doing that? And if you are, just cut it out. Be yourself. Because it's so freeing, when you can just be the you that's on the inside. Yeah. So anyway, after that, you need to learn to develop your boundaries, determine what your boundaries need to be, because this new you need to protect that person because you love her. So when your sense of self has a healthy definition, when you defined yourself in a healthy way, you become able to determine your boundaries, to protect yourself, to stay healthy. That's the process I had to go through, and it's still a journey. I can't say it's easy for me yet. It takes a long time to overcome that tendency to be a people pleaser. But you'll learn so much about yourself in the process. You'll finally feel like you're a person worthy of protecting. And you'll learn that no is a complete sentence. No, I can't fit that into my schedule today, but thank you. No, I'm tired and I want to rest tonight, but thanks for thinking of me. Yeah. That's all that's needed. And the thing that helped me to determine whether to say yes or no to an opportunity was to, before I let the answer come out of my mouth, I would hold off for a minute, pause for a moment, and think, what's my internal compass saying? Yes. And my effort, and still it's an ongoing effort, is to make sure that my internal compass aligns with the answer that comes out. So let my internal no be an external no, if I can. That's not always possible, but if I can. So that's kind of another little tip or trick. So take some time, pause, and examine whether that thing is a must or is it a should? Do you actually have a choice in the matter, and do your best to make the healthy choice for yourself? It gets easier. When you learn you can say no and not feel bad about it, or actually pretty good about it, there comes another level of self-confidence. So now, in summary, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, you know your likes, you know your dislikes, your imperfections. You've learned to accept and be okay with all those things.
Mhm.
You've learned how to love you and be your own best friend and your own advocate.
Mhm.
You've learned how to care for yourself by listening to your body, your mind, and your soul, and figuring out what it needs and giving that what it needs. You've learned how to nurture and advocate for yourself by setting and enforcing your boundaries. Those boundaries will protect yourself. That person that you've come to accept and love, you need to protect her. You've learned how to step out in confidence and let the world see the new you that you've defined for yourself, that you've molded and created with love. So now what are you going to do? Go out and set her free. Let her live her life, knowing that she'll win some, she'll lose some, but also knowing that it's okay. You've learned and taught yourself how to use skills in order to take care of yourself and to live with authenticity and vibrancy, no matter what or who comes or goes. So now the question is, where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
Mhm.
What do you want to give to this world with this, the gifts, the talents, everything you've learned about yourself? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to accomplish because you know you can? What is your destiny? So remember, you can, you will, you are, and you always will be enough, enough for you. So thank you for joining me.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So kind of a recap of what you have said, and then ending in a question.
Yeah.
You discovered when you were at a bad place that there was this mind-body connection,
Yeah.
and that you needed to focus on the self-care that built to the self-confidence, and then the authenticity.
Yeah.
There's a fragility when you're at that point,
Yes.
especially when you're around people that you had been this chameleon with that doesn't know the new you, because you were the one that was used to be the person that mirrored them, and you're no
Yes.
longer that person.
Mhm.
And I think this is a common place where people get to, where they feel, oh my gosh, they're become fearful that they can get sucked back in because this other person can't accept the authentic person they are. They want that chameleon back. So
Yes.
what recommendations do you have for someone who is at that very fragile point of being able to continue forward?
Mhm. That's a really good question, because I have been there and I am still
Yeah,
there. I am still there.
me too.
There are people in my life still who um, I have not had the courage to reveal the real me
Hmm.
to yet,
Hmm.
because of that fragility.
Yeah.
There are people who still have the power to, I don't know what the right word is, but to
Suck
injure,
you back in.
to suck me back in. Yes. So it's a work in progress. It always will be. But I'm trying to always remember uh, the um, the self-love and the self-care, that I am enough for me. And it is definitely a journey of baby steps of sometimes you can't reveal the whole you at once.
Yeah.
I covered this a little bit in the Falling Forward presentation, the baby steps.
Yeah.
What can I do today to be authentic, um, to myself, to my neighbor, to this family member that I still feel a little bit fragile around? What little thing can I do or say? Can I uh, can I say no if they ask me out to dinner tonight and I really don't feel like it?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do that. So that's what I would recommend. Just try one little thing. You don't have to jump into the whole thing and get in their face with it. Try
Yeah.
one little thing, because they need time too.
Yeah.
They need time to adjust as well.
And for me, I found that as I was being my authentic self with the people who I had been a chameleon with, and these were relationships that I couldn't sever. And I know there are people who say you can sever every relationship. There are some that you're just there by blood or whatever may be.
Right.
And I found that as I was being my authentic self, that it became easier and easier to not be the chameleon. But there are still those moments where they will say something that will trigger me, and I'm right back there. And I didn't like who I was when I was there.
Right.
So it's taking a deep breath and going forward. And there's something that you didn't mention that I want to bring out at this point in time is that while we always have somebody who steps forward or an entity that steps forward that is to help us, like you found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and that had an aha moment for you.
Right.
That there are people like you out there, and I'm plugging you at this point in time,
Thank you.
that you have walked the path, and now you are in a role where you help others walk that path. And your business name is Your Path Forward, and you work with people anywhere in the world through the use of technology, so that somebody who's watching this video and saying, oh, that sounds wonderful, that sounds logical to do these things. You know, I say this every time almost that I'm interviewing a coach. Professional athletes have coaches
Yes.
for a reason. It's not that they don't know how to play their game. It's because they need that outside set of eyes looking at them and making those little course corrections that we don't know that we need made. And that's what you can do in terms of supporting someone who is saying, yeah, this is what Linda walked through is exactly what I'm walking through. And okay, I just need to work on self-care. And okay, I've got this circle of life. I can keep going back to it. But you're there to help guide them through that whole process and mirror to them what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. That's really what my definition of a coach is
Yeah.
a guide on the side.
Yeah.
Football players on the football field, the coach isn't out there playing the game for them, but he's on the side and he's right there for them, helping them call the plays.
Mm-hmm.
He won't play the game for them. They have to do it, but it's so much more helpful, and it's a little bit easier when there's a person, a guide on the side that can look at um, they may see things that you can't see or that are too painful for you to see.
Yeah. So I want to interject here for those who are watching this video. Yes, I am aware of the fact that occasionally Linda cut out because of the internet connection that we have, and there was a little bit in that last part that she said. But I'm going to tell you that we've got all the juice and the meat here. So don't worry about those little cutouts. The content is fantastic, as you know, all the way along. So just let you know, you did cut out a little bit here and there,
Okay.
but it's all good. And the fact of the matter is, if you're watching this video and you want to learn more, you need to go to yourpathforward.org, right?
Yes.
And connect with Linda, and she can fill you in on all those little sound gaps that we had. I have no doubt. So
Yeah, anybody who wants to contact me with questions, I offer a free complimentary discovery session. So no loss, no cost to you. So I'd be love to talk to you. And also I'm going to be putting up a link on my webpage, hopefully today, that you can download my ebook, which is a summary of my Falling Forward presentation, which is a prequel to this presentation.
well, that's absolutely awesome. And go to youdefinewellness.com, look on the tab called Healthy Living Videos, and you will see all the different videos that we have with Linda, as well as with, there's more than 100 videos on there. So we have an awful lot of videos for you. So with that being said, Linda, I'm going to say thank you. This was fantastic content, and I'm so glad that you went through the journey that you did, so that you can share those lessons with all of us.
Yep, turning pain into purpose.
Absolutely. All right. Have a fantastic day, everyone. We'll see you on another video.